I'm Jason with the All Things Open team. We're here with Zoe. Please introduce yourself to the ATO community.
Yeah, so my name is Zoe Steinkamp. I'm a developer advocate at Clickhouse. I have a background in databases. I've worked for DB companies for about 5 years now, almost, and so I'm quite familiar with the technology.
Well, welcome to the studio. What excites you about open source databases?
What excites me about open source databases is they really allow the community, obviously, to leverage their skill set to help make them better and to build upon them. But there's also just an awesomeness to being able to, get started with a database that's open source, especially, kind of see how it works for your data, do definitely, comparisons, et cetera, with other DBs, especially other open source DBs, and, really be able to determine if, in the future, if you scale and you want to buy, you can buy, and if not, you can just stay on the open source and scale it yourself. It's great to have all these options.
Perfect. What is a Columnar database?
A Columnar database is basically a database that focuses more on storing the data instead of in rows and columns. So you can imagine a row-based database would have phone information. So it's like the phone type, the price someone paid for the phone, and the order number associated with that phone. That would be one row of data, you would say. So when you say, I want to look up phone 123, it would grab the whole row. It would have the row with the ID 123, the phone information, and the price. But in a Columnar DB, it would be stored a little different. You'd have your column of IDs, your column of phones, and your column of prices. So that means that same query wouldn't be quite as efficient because it would have to, first go find the ID, then go find in another column row, the actual phone. It would be very inefficient, but it is a lot better on a query like, what is the average cost of the phone? Because it will just grab the phone price column. It will not look at the IDs, the phone type, any of that other superfluous information, and it will then be able to retrieve that very quickly and give you back your average phone price.
Got it. Are there any other advantages to that type of database?
The biggest thing is obviously the ability to query very quickly, but the other big one is compression. When you're storing stuff in a column, and especially if it's not a transactional database, so basically it doesn't focus on being able to go back and update rows. So again, with a row-based DB, you would store your user information. So when you go in and you change your password or your email, it goes and makes a transactional call. It says, hey, go ahead and grab Zoe's information so I can have this row, so I can edit the information and then pop it back in. In a Columnar database, it doesn't normally do so many transactions. It's more about just a continuous flow of data, basically, continuous flow of phone orders. But you don't really go back and say, actually, Zoe didn't pay $600 for that phone. She paid $619. You can do that a few times. It's not like it's impossible to do, but that's not the most common thing you're going to do. You're not doing so many transaction loads.
Got it. How are you using Apache Arrow and Apache Parquet for analytics?
So these are two so especially when you're working with Columnar DBs, these are really popular tools to take advantage of. So Parquet is a file format, and it's specifically for Columnar data types. So Parquet is basically really good at being able to do ignoring. I'm going to call it's called like skipping, basically, where you say like, hey, I only want to know the phone prices for this day. And because it knows how things are organized, it knows for each Parquet file, like the dates that are associated, basically, it can ignore files. It can skip over files where it's like, not the right date, not the right date, not the right date. Aha, that's where I wanted, right there. So it makes it a lot more efficient for querying. It also has a very, very good compression rate because, again, it's Columnar database, Columnar file format, so it's very good at that compression. And just in general, it's a lot faster. What Apache Arrow does, though, is allow data transfer. So that's really focused on, instead of having to serialize and deserialize your data when you're transferring it between something like Pandas and Clickhouse, or Clickhouse and Apache Spark, or another, data tooling, ETL tooling, it basically gets rid of that cost and just sends it straight there. So that's really great, and it does transfer Parquet files. It also does other files, I think like JSON, CSV, your normal stuff, but it especially works together with Parquet. It was built after Parquet was built, but it was built specifically to allow people somewhat to be able to transfer those Parquet files.
That's pretty cool. Do you have any tips, best practices, or new tools you've been using that we can share with the ATO community?
Hey, this is Todd with All Things Open. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. We've got a lot of new content coming we think you're going to be interested in. One final favor, be sure to go to allthingsopen.org, allthingsopen.org to see everything that we do. Back to the video.
I'd say the biggest thing I'm working on right now when it comes to like tips is, really try to, try to take some breaks when you're at these kind of conferences, especially because you tend to get a little bit of an information overload, and it feels and also people overload. You're like surrounded by people, you're socializing all the time. It can be good to like recognize when you're feeling a little under the under the pressure, basically, and take a break, enjoy one of the lounges here, take a breather, look through the notes that you've taken from the talks that you've gone to, maybe look up some of those resources, or just check your email. That's the other thing too. I think people get really stressed after a show like this because they go to their work email and they have 20 to look through. Kind of pick a time during the day when you're like, I'm not really that interested in any of these talks, or take a little bit of a longer break and miss the beginning or end of someone's talk and just take some time for yourself.
Cool. So we have 5,000 people of our open source friends here. Any advice to offer to help conference attendees apply what they've learned at ATO once they get home?
I think the best thing is, note-taking is a big thing, and that can be, on your phone, on your laptop, and an actual notepad, but you pick your poison on that one. But, most speakers are pretty good about leaving resources at the end of their slides. We're very good at this point about putting up QR codes, things that you can look at. And I know some people will just be like, oh, well, I'll just go look at the slides after, which is also you can do that. You can definitely go look at the slides, but I think it's better to try to just cherry pick out little pieces of either tech or resources, and then after you get back, you can start to sift through them, you could say, and determine what will actually be helpful for your job, also helpful for your coworkers possibly if you wrote something down for them. I think that's the biggest thing is just, taking little snippets from each of the talks that you go to see, especially if they offer resources, and then just looking at them later.
Perfect. Thanks for your advice. Zoe, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you.